Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of the day that it is that you are joining us. Thank you for doing so. Welcome back to another episode of WJ Live, where the points do count and the scores actually do matter.
Oh, that's an old 90s
an old
reference.
tagline. You guys are old.
My name is Brian Chai. I am the Deputy Managing Editor of Features here at the Western Journal and the reigning champion of WJ Live. To my right, I have perpetual runner-up Josh Manning. To my left, I've got Joseph Sedian.
Hi, Brian. Hi, Josh.
Hello.
Hi.
We have a smorgasbord of topics to get to. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it off and just sort of talk about a disturbing trend I've been noticing lately, guys. The brazenness of the way that liberals, and by that I mean the whole shebang, the media, pundits, celebrities, it is open season on conservatives, and it's not just open season in the sense that I'm fine if they want to attack us on something that they kind of genuinely disagree with, but we're talking about stuff where so I have a few examples written down here. Anthony Scaramucci, the Mooch.
Yeah, I saw this.
Yeah, quite the grifter. He compared former President Donald Trump, he's still president, President Donald Trump to the Oklahoma City bomber Timothy McVeigh, calling him a domestic terrorist of the 21st century. Joe Scarborough of MSNBC's Morning Joe, another favorite of ours. This is just so lazy, but Joe compared Trump to Hitler, which is,
Shocking.
Yeah, haven't heard that one before. And, obviously the idea being anyone who supports Trump is a literal Nazi. And then,
well, Don Lemon said that the other day,
Yep.
these
Yeah,
are
Lemon's another one.
And,
Right.
Oh, sorry, I'm stepping on you.
No, not at all. Don Lemon's another one. CNN's just rife with it. Jake Tapper came out and questioned the patriotism of Florida Rep. Brian Mast, who's a Republican and a Purple Heart recipient. He's a double leg amputee. And because of his apparent support for Trump, he must hate America.
I think that was a different. I think that's a different thing. I don't agree with. I think what Tapper said was in poor taste, but he basically just said Tapper has shown a lot of support in his past. I don't particularly like the guy, but he's shown a lot of support for veterans. He's not some anti-veteran guy. He was just saying, you challenged the election. I don't think you should have challenged the election.
No, he said, I'm not positive you fight for democracy now.
Yeah, which
that's a different thing.
Sure, and I think I don't know.
I'm not sure you're committed to fighting for democracy now
because of what he did in terms of challenging the election and basically claiming Donald Trump won when he didn't.
Yeah, so somebody who lost two legs,
right?
He was willing to fight for democracy
sure.
then, and Tapper said, "I'm not sure he's willing."
No, it was in poor taste.
For democracy.
It was in poor taste. It was in poor taste. Oh, we can agree with that.
Yeah, I think we can all agree it was in very, very poor taste. And then finally, one last example: the Washington Post, once again, going to the old lazy comparison, essentially compared Trump to Hitler. So what I want to ask you guys is, it does feel like the trajectory of America feels very much on a bit of a downward spiral because, I just give a laundry list of just kind of icky examples of the left. And to be completely fair, it's not like the right or conservatives are completely innocent of this either. Like we
No, but they've been far more victimized.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. But it just feels like at some point, someone has to kind of be the adult. And I don't think it's fair that expectation should fall on conservatives. But without that, because it just feels like the left is so far gone. To expect them to be the adult in the room just seems impossible at this point. So what do you guys? Joe, I'll go ahead and ask you. What are your general thoughts on that? Like, do you think this trajectory can we pull back from it, or are we just headed for this irreparable political tribalism?
Well, I think that kind of the people you talked about, right? You talked about Jake Tapper, you talked about Joe Scarborough, you talked about Anthony Scaramucci. For one thing, I think Jake Tapper's probably pretty liberal. Joe Scarborough was a Republican congressman. I'm not saying he's a Republican. I'm not saying he's a conservative. But he's not identified by him being a Democrat. And it's the same with Anthony Scaramucci, who has worked for a Republican administration. These people who I do not like are not identified by being on the left. They're identified because they stand out because they're saying anything to get attention. So I think the problem is,
but they believe it.
They do believe it. No, I agree. They are Trump haters, but I think the problem is not so much we're saying, it's the left wants to do this. There are a bunch of people out there who really just want to say anything to get attention, and they'll say gross things. It's always a good rule never compare anyone to Hitler. Just in general, don't do it. But these people like Scaramucci and Scarborough and Tapper, they're just trying to get a rise out of people. I think it's stupid, but I think they're just grifting. I know.
You don't think they believe it?
They're just grifters trying to appease They're just trying to get some attention. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's
they
how
have
it comes off to me.
They have national talk shows. They have attention.
Right. So they're trying to get more attention. They're trying to win the ratings war. They're trying to get more people to listen or watch or anything like, oh, this guy's going to say something crazy on his show later.
But it hasn't. They've gotten massacred, though.
I was just about to say.
Throughout the last 4 years, Fox just absolutely killed them.
Yeah, but MSNBC's ratings have still gone up. MSNBC Morning Joe has done well in comparison to what MSNBC had been doing
Fox
since
is
Trump.
the best counterexample of this because they were far more reasonable in the way they covered everything and their commentary.
Fox was.
They're far more reasonable in the way they covered the last 4 years than
to an
CNN
extent.
and MSNBC.
Yeah, but I think it's one side or the other. So it's like CNN and MSNBC were doing their complete anti-Trump thing, and Fox News was, for the most part, with the exception of a couple guys, kind of questioning, at least on their opinion side, just unquestioningly accepting everything Trump said or did.
So that's fine. That actually sort of goes to my argument, which is that if attention is all you want, then presumably what you do is over the last 4 years, you would have done kind of what Fox did and supported it. I don't think they're doing this because they want attention. I think they're doing this because they believe it. I think you tell a lie long enough, it becomes the truth. And I think they absolutely believe that people like us are. Let me give you an example. I got into a conversation on Facebook. Conversations are just wonderful on Facebook. That is a place where love and grace and acceptance just abounds. But I happen to know Judd Deere, who's the deputy press secretary right now. And some other people who knew him were attacking him, and I stepped in and defended him a little bit. And somebody I sort of know in response talked about me and my fascist friends. I don't think he's doing that for attention. I think they believe this.
I think it's people like that guy who are on the extremes of the left. And there are a lot of people on the extremes. But I don't know.
All right, we're going far afield. We're going far afield.
No.
Yes. You're right. You're right, Josh. It is people like that. There are people who do believe that. I think that the people, when you look at the media and when you look at people who are on TV or on Fox or CNN or MSNBC or whatever, do they believe that? Probably not. So I don't think they're the root of the problem. There are people who believe that.
I can't believe that that's true, though, because there are movie stars, like people who have got more attention and money than anyone else will ever have. And they clearly think that we are the Antichrist.
Yeah, because they want to be on the end. They want to be on the Hollywood.
Devil.
They want to be in the Hollywood in crowd,
I think
they're already in the in crowd.
But they want to be more so. They don't want to lose their access to the in crowd. They don't want to lose their access to the in crowd. Kind of the unspoken agreement is, you don't support Trump if you're.
So then the idea then is that if you could provide an equal outlet on the other side, they would just move toward that. I don't think that's true. I don't think there's any way that's true. They absolutely hate us.
I wonder. I think some of them hate us, and I think for a lot of them, it's just a grift. It's just something that they are saying because it's what you do. It's just a shtick. It's just his thing. Joe Scarborough's thing is that he, used to like
that
Trump,
is
and
an
now
insanely dangerous game to play.
Oh, it certainly is. I don't disagree. It's very bad.
Because that actually does lend itself to, my natural train of thought as I was kind of researching this topic was like, I'm glad you guys delved into motive because that's actually a fascinating discussion. But irrelevant of motive, it does like the feelings that this type of name calling and character assassination engenders is real. Like
absolutely,
people feel
absolutely
awful about it. If this continues, and Josh, I'm gonna kick this to you first because you're the most positive person I know. If this continues, where does America end up? Like if this exact trajectory continues, and let's say it's 2040. And you and I both still have all of our hair. Yeah. What is America going to look like?
Decreasingly optimistic proposition there. Split.
Complete like
split.
Two separate countries.
Yep.
Split.
Yeah, that's I don't know. So we talked about this a little bit yesterday. That's the only outcome I can come up with other than revival. Revival could change this because right now, basically what you've got is you've got two groups of people that have two completely different narratives that are the truth as far as they're concerned. Mm-hmm. There's far less concern about objective truth and more concern about more concern about my narrative is what's best, and therefore I'll pick the facts that support it. I don't know how people can coexist like that in a body politic. I just don't know. The easiest way to solve that, to me, and not to say that splitting would be easy at all, but the only feasible way I can come up with, short of revival, which would provide some objective truths, some objective ideas that everybody could agree on, or the majority could agree on again. That could unite us. Other than that, I don't know. I don't see how you continue down. I don't see how you continue down that road. I mean, yeah, it's like I've always wondered in divorce cases what the irreconcilable differences are when they're cited. Divorce for irreconcilable differences. I mean, this is the embodiment of that description. There are irreconcilable, philosophical, and practical differences.
So what do you think the solution is then,
right now?
Are you like
revival?
No, aside from revival, do you think that people on the left and the people on the right just can't live together? Outside of revival, which hopefully that happens.
I think it depends on how far they're split on the spectrum, right? If you've got more or less a centrist country with a few folks off to the left a little bit, but not too far off, a few folks to the right, not too far off, I think cohabitating like that is a very feasible thing. It's something we've done for a long time. But the farther away from the middle you get, the more extreme the poles are, the harder and harder it is to stay together.
All life is not politics. I mean, these are still people, for the most part, who are trying to put food on the table for their families. Mm-hmm. They're trying to work. They're trying to do a good job. They're not... they're just trying to live their lives and do what's best for their families. I don't think it always has to be whether you're a hard left or a hard right. It's not always, you can't coexist. I think people can coexist. I don't like the division in our country. I think it's terrible.
I think they can coexist. I'm not positive they will. Okay. So if the question, it's a different question, right? If the question is, can they coexist like this? Well, I mean, you can do anything if you've got enough time and money. Sure, we could make it happen.
Think it hard enough.
If you think it hard enough. But will they? Is there any outcome where they continue to? I hope so. I don't know. I don't know how you solve this short of revival. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. One person who I don't think will ever be willing to meet us in the middle is our favorite freshman she's not a freshman anymore. Freshwoman. Yeah. It is Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, who I know you want to talk about today.
I do. And to be fair, I do not like her socialist policies, but she is willing to meet libertarians in the middle on some things. So,
on the things they're wrong.
Libertarian Joe.
Again. It's very easy to agree with people when you're wrong and they're wrong too.
So basically, AOC went on Instagram Live the other day, as she is wont to do, and she spoke a little bit about, she was taking questions from the audience, and one of them was about the media and kind of about misinformation and what's being done to sort of solve that problem. And I'm going to quote from here, but actually we can put that on the screen first. We can just show you the video of AOC speaking.
Any discussion in Congress about federal truth and reconciliation or media literacy initiatives to help with healing? I definitely, so I can't say, I don't think that the response, this kind of like medium term response has fully crystallized yet. But what I can say is that there's absolutely a commission that's being discussed, but it seems to be more investigatory in style rather than truth and reconciliation. And so I think that's an interesting concept for us to explore. And, I do think that several members of Congress in some of my discussions have brought up media literacy, because that is a part of what happened here. And we're going to have to figure out how we rein in our media environment so that you can't just spew disinformation and misinformation. It's one thing to have differing opinions, but it's another thing entirely to just say things that are false. And so that's something that we're looking into. Some folks are asking what I'm doing for my own healing.
So that was AOC talking about how we need to rein in the media. And basically, I think that's the scary part there, because here's a member of Congress, a member of the federal government, basically saying, here's this problem, misinformation, disinformation, whatever you want to call it, fake news, and it's a problem for the government to solve. I think that this should rightly get First Amendment advocates worried, because the First Amendment says Congress shall make no law. Literally, AOC, you shall make no law restricting freedom of the press. And it looks like that's kind of what she's trying to do, though. And the scary part is that she's coming at it from with good intentions. It seems she wants to get rid of fake news and get rid of good things.
That's not
from her. That's how she's trying.
That's how she's pitching it.
Right. That's how she's trying to pitch it as something that is good. And
sure.
Look, we know that misinformation on both sides, on the left and the right, is huge. We know that's a problem, and so she's basically kind of coming along and saying, "Look, I can solve that problem," and that's dangerous because it is a problem, but government is not the solution. So my question for you guys is, I'll go to Josh first. Do you think we're nearing a place where the government is actually going to rein in the media?
I don't know why all three branches are going to be controlled by Democrats. I don't know why, and the media certainly is controlled by the left and Democrats. I don't know why they would want to rein them in. I think what she's talking about is code for anything that dissents from the left's narrative.
Okay.
I think those things, because remember, that's where this idea of fake news and the problems with social media misinformation and all those things came from was 2016.
To an extent, that's true. You still have QAnon people and all that stuff proliferating on social media. That's still an issue. So there is a problem there with fake news, with conspiracy theories, with just stuff that isn't true on both sides. With the left and with the right. Making its rounds on the internet.
It's not clear to me there's ever been a time in human history when that hasn't been the case.
Right, and I'm saying it. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying it is an issue. She is pointing to a real issue, and she is saying, "Here's my terrible, terrible solution."
I think, Josh, you do bring up a good point. I think misinformation has always, throughout human history, has been an issue. I mean, there were people who thought the moon landing was faked,
which it probably was.
Anyways, I think
he's kidding.
No, I'm not.
I don't think Joe is. The issue is it's never been easier to get that misinformation, if that makes any sense. And I'm not.
It can proliferate super quickly.
Yeah, and by no means am I suggesting AOC should or any government entity should rein in the media, but. That's I think the guise. That's the guise of their argument. Yeah. That's the crux of their argument, is that it's never been easier to get misinformed.
And that was the crux of Trump's argument too, when he said we were going to open up the libel laws so that basically make it easier to sue media outlets. He was saying New York Times versus Sullivan. He was going to sort of disregard, and that's the Supreme Court case that established what is. You can't sue media outlets for this because they have freedom of the press. Up until here, I won't explain it all because I would sound like an idiot, and because that would take too long.
No, you sound like an idiot because you think the moon landing staged.
Well, it happened. The moon landing happened. It just didn't happen when they told you it happened. Regardless, I think it's again, I hate to be a both sideser, but I think it's a both sides thing in that Republicans want to limit media that they don't agree with to an extent. President Trump hates the New York Times. He hated the Washington Post. He hated CNN. He talked about yanking their deals and all this stuff.
He talked about doing what?
He talked about basically because he didn't like CNN's coverage. He would talk about how deals with them and maybe AT&T. I have to look into it a little bit more. But he did make kind of veiled threats against media outlets. He didn't
talk about shutting them down. He didn't talk about ending them. He didn't talk about suppressing them.
AOC's not talking about ending them either. He's just saying he had.
But you can't. I'm not worried about what AOC said right now. You can't walk out there.
I didn't say he was talking about shutting them down.
Okay.
I didn't say that. You must have misunderstood me. I said that President Trump has said things about the media, and I'm not talking about when he calls them the enemy of the people, which he has done, and I don't like that. But he has talked about the New York Times and said, we have to open up the libel laws. And he's talked about CNN, and he's talked about, I'd have to look into it because it was some very specific thing that he didn't have the power to do, but it had to do with basically threatening them so that they would give him better coverage or stuff like that. And I will look that up later, but it is true. It's a both sides thing.
So what's the point?
The point is conservatives and liberals are both doing this terrible thing to the media, right? They are attacking First Amendment rights, and I think that's something we should worry about, right? AOC right now, but who's it going to be in 10 years?
Probably AOC.
Well, I mean, are there a whole lot of conservatives who are attacking First Amendment rights?
Well, the conservatives have called the media the enemy of the people for years.
So those are two different things, though, right? The media is one thing,
right?
Actual journalism is another thing.
Sure, yeah.
The media is the enemy of the people. There's no question about that.
The establishment media?
Yeah, the mainstream media unquestionably is unhealthy for the body politic.
I think the
and
rhetoric.
for America.
I think
in
the
general.
rhetoric definitely wasn't helpful. But no,
But who are the conservatives who are calling for?
Well, Trump. I mean, he's not going to be president anymore. But he was sort of talking about some First Amendment stuff with that, right?
I don't know. I don't remember him talking about.
I know he's
suppressing the First
on
Amendment.
Times he talked about opening up the libel laws so that the people can't publish what they want to publish.
Well, that's not necessarily suppressing the First Amendment.
According to the Supreme Court, it is.
Well, the
if you
Supreme Court. Also abortion is fine according to the Supreme Court.
That's a fair point. He's also talked about, if you want to even move past the media, if you want to talk about the First Amendment, he's talked about making flag burning a crime, which is unconstitutional. But what my point is not to say, well, this is as bad as that. My point is to say that in politics and from the government, it's a very slippery slope, and you're always going to see them attack our First Amendment and our constitutional rights a little bit, and then once they get a little bit of that, then they're going to keep up and take them all. And you saw that with COVID, and you saw that with basically every time the government's tried taking our rights, right? And that's what I'm worried about here with, AOC said she's going to form or there's talk of a congressional committee being formed to look at disinformation, and that's pretty scary to me.
Yeah, the idea, somebody ultimately, if you're going to do that, somebody's got to be an arbiter of truth, and that
I don't want
the government ends up being in that position. Yeah. Exactly,
we
exactly.
Thing, see?
Yeah, well, and I think we don't need. I think the idea of having arbiters of truth. The problem is everybody comes with a bias. Everybody comes with an agenda. Is the only truth that I know of is Scripture. So yeah, anytime the best way to deal with this, I think, is a marketplace of ideas, which is what social media basically used to be.
Yeah.
It was this idea that people would engage with the content that most resonated with them and would share it and these things, and that was fine. And social media is a super challenging part of this.
Yep.
It's like, what do you do when the most extreme positions can get tons of traction? and everything. I don't know what you do with that. What I do know is that the left is definitely on the march in America, and I think the impetus behind all of these conversations is to silence conservatives and to silence those who would push against the left and the elite. Sure. And that is incredibly dangerous.
Didn't you go to Harvard? Aren't you part of the elite?
I don't claim to be part of the elite.
Well, that was my last question. So you answered it for me. The free market always works to solve everything. I was going to say, what solves the issue of disinformation?
I don't think it works to solve everything.
Does it. Always.
It doesn't solve it. No, it doesn't solve everything. No, because markets.
Every time.
No, fallen humans are the ones that comprise markets,
right?
And so they don't always make the right decision. If the market were always right, then pornography either wouldn't exist or pornography would be perfectly fine. So, I mean, the marketplace, it is a dangerous thing. Mm-hmm. And that's why, fundamentally, at the core of all of this, and I do think the three of us agree on this, at the core of all of this, Christ is the issue. Yeah. Because that fixes and brings into alignment so many things. And if you have that as your core, then the people who are in the market are hopefully going to make better decisions. Yeah.
I'm going to turn it over to you, Josh.
Are we to me? All right,
privacy.
We're almost out of time. I want to do we can do this super fast. A couple of interesting things today that just happened into my lap on.
It just happened. Those pages
Slack.
just appeared into your lap.
They did, and I got to get all of my stuff together. So our friend Dick Morris, we carry his column from time to time. Dick Morris did a lunch update today, and his topic was basically cancel culture and how it's targeting conservatives, especially after last Wednesday, after what happened on Capitol Hill. Which is truly remarkable because I don't remember anyone after Antifa and BLM and the craziness over the summer. I don't remember anyone trying to deplatform any of those people or get them censored. I don't remember that at all. But Morris, he listed off a number of companies that are taking action trying to go after Trump, trying to go after his supporters, or trying to go after conservatives. The first one he lists you probably never heard of is Cumulus Media, but they're trying to keep Mark Levin. They're a talk radio network. They're trying to keep Mark Levin off. Deutsche Bank has said they're not going to do business with Trump anymore. And then there's a whole litany of companies, big companies, that Morris says are basically waging war against conservatives and trying to censor them. American Airlines, Hilton Hotels, BP, British Petroleum, Coca-Cola, Goldman. My favorite one, Hallmark.
I think Hallmark's been anti-conservative for a while.
AT&T. Did they do gay Christmas movies this year?
Hallmark, they've done LGBTQ.
I think they did gay Christmas movies this time. I'm not sure. AT&T, Comcast, MasterCard, Visa, Dow, Airbnb, and then potentially the scariest one, Boston Scientific. Aren't those the guys with the robot dogs?
Yep, the dancing robots.
But you teach the robot dogs that conservatives are bad news, then you got real trouble. So that in and of itself is alarming. Now, I want to share two other quick things with you. First, a report that's circulating around right now about the NHL, a charter jet company, and an ex-Trump campaign worker. The campaign worker's name was Dawson Buchanan. Did you see this earlier? He was supposed to start a new job with Private Jet Services, which is a group that apparently helps the NHL with their charter flights and those things. Buchanan says that the NHL objected to his coming on with Private Jet Services, and Private Jet Services came back to Buchanan and said, okay, well, we're not going to bring you on. Now, they deny this. John Dalpina, spokesman for the NHL, emphatically denied it. This is just coming out, so it's in the process of being investigated. But that's just kind of a sort of a real world example of some of this cancellation that's going on. Let me give you another example. I mentioned Judd Deere, the deputy press secretary, earlier.
Stop thinking of John Deere.
Judd Deere. So Judd and I went to college together, And on an alumni page for the school, someone called for the school to call on Judd to resign. Which is absolutely ridiculous. The idea that an institution of higher learning would make a political call like that. I went to a small private liberal arts college that I'm not talking positively about some of the alumni, so I'm not going to mention their name.
Harvard.
Well, I went to grad school there.
Okay.
So then there's other alumni trying to push the guy out. Now, all of this comes together with a very interesting story that showed up in Nature.com. I'm going to read you the headline, and then I'll read just a couple of lines from it. Facial recognition technology can expose political orientation from facial images. That's right. Now, first couple lines. Ubiquitous facial recognition tech can expose individuals' political orientation as faces of liberals and conservatives consistently differ. A facial recognition algorithm was applied to about 1 million images of individuals to predict their political orientation. It turns out the algorithm was correct about 72% of the time. When you correct for age and all sorts of different variables, it drops down into the high 60s. But the best people can do is about a 55% prediction rate, which is remarkable that you can actually tell just a little bit. But when you think of the idea that there are facial recognition technologies being rolled out everywhere, especially in China, it's absolutely all over the place. We see it in airports all over the place now. I think Great Britain's really, really embracing it. And then you get the idea that it can get a pretty good shot at singling out who's conservative and who's not. And the elites now are doing everything they can that they think they can get away with as far as canceling conservatives. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying it's a perfect storm of super, super chilling ideas. And I'm really just sort of curious what you guys think.
I mean, that seems like particularly dystopian to me.
It is, but so are robot dogs. Boston Dynamics
true.
Robot dogs.
And normally, Josh, my natural inclination is always to argue with you. But I do remember seeing it's not the exact same story, but something about, I want to say it was a firefighter or someone who's misidentified at the Capitol. January 6th, and he just erroneously fired for being misidentified. And so, as much as I hate the idea, I don't know if the facial recognition technology will ever become a factor, but it almost doesn't need to be. That's the scary part.
Great point.
The left doesn't need algorithms or tech to back
Fantastic
up.
point.
If they think you are, that's apparently all it takes.
So imagine, say, 20 years ago, you got in a time machine, and you went back 20 years ago, and you told somebody, hey, in 20 years, if you make a move that the establishment doesn't like, your picture is going to end up on computer monitors all over the world. And millions of people are going to try to identify who you are. Somebody's going to ferret out who you are, and then they're going to distribute that information to millions more people. Mm-hmm. A person would look at you like you're nuts.
Yeah.
Like you're absolutely nuts. And your point with the fire, that just happened.
Yep.
That just happened.
It was the wrong guy.
It's chilling.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right, and I agree with Brian. I don't think the facial recognition thing is going to get to that. I am scared of facial recognition, to be completely honest.
Too.
And I'm scared with it partly because of how this is off topic, but how the government is working with the private sector to implement it. How airports are working with it, and how Amazon's working with the government. All that stuff is gross, and I don't like it, and it's scary. I don't think they're going to identify liberal or conservative, because I think that's impossible to an extent, right? But like Brian said, you can't go anywhere. If you do anything, you're gonna get canceled for it, and that's scary. That's chilling. It's not a society that it's not the type of society that I would like. I don't think anyone would like it. I would like to think that most people wouldn't like it, except for the left and the nut job folks on the left. But
it feels like a plot you would see on the Twilight Zone or the Outer Limits or Black Mirror or Electric Sheep or something like that. Wasn't that the one based on? No, it's not old. It's just a couple of years old.
I don't know.
We'll get you the name of the show later. I think
I
it's
know the
Electric
Twilight Zone.
Sheep.
You're
I think it's
traveling
Electric
through
Sheep.
another dimension.
Yeah.
A dimension not only of sight and
All
sound,
right.
but of mind.
So we're over time. We're over time. We enjoyed visiting with you today. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate it. As always, we are here Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. We're wrapping the week up. We hope you're wrapping the week up well and going to have a good weekend. If you can, get out of the news and just kind of try to relax and recharge. If you're going to be in the news, head over to westernjournal.com and check us out, because
Say to do a rap?
WJ Live is powered by westernjournal.com. And as we've talked about this before, producing good, authentic, independent journalism that is actually interested in the truth is what we're all about. That's what the Western Journal stands for. We thank you for your help in pursuing that cause. Just by tuning in and watching, just by checking out articles, you're helping us. Thank you for that. If you'd like to help even more, you can go online to westernjournal.com/join, westernjournal.com/join. And there are several different ways you can sign up to help us there and support our work and be a part of the team with us. If you can't do that, we completely understand. Just keep watching, just keep checking out articles. But if you can, you feel inclined to help us, that would be wonderful. Also, if you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to subscribe. And when you subscribe, click the little bell. Don't forget to do that. When you do that, you will get notified as soon. I'm sorry, my ears were ringing for some reason. You'll get notified as soon as we go live. That really will help with shadow banning and that sort of thing. It's basically you telling YouTube, hey, whenever these guys go live, I want to hear about it. Thank you for joining us. Again, have a great weekend, and we're going to see you back here Monday, 5 Eastern, 2 Pacific. Take care and have a great weekend.
Bye.
Josh, did you hear? They're putting the Libertarian back on the podcast.
No.
Oh? You didn't see the calendar?
No.
You should talk to Kayla about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, who's on the show Tuesday?
You and Joe.
Yeah. Like he's back.
Yeah, no, you and Joe.
The Libertarian?
Yeah, Libertarian Joe.
He's not back.
You should just go in the studio and check it out.
You're messing with me.
Okay.
Okay. Nice joke, Kayla. Come here, go to the studio. Oh. No!